The Dental Download podcast is your source for insight into dental school, conversations with dentists, specialists, and leaders in the industry. With new episodes every Monday morning, I'm your host, Haley Schultz. Let's get into this week's episode. Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily and then distribute it everywhere and even earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters. Here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right away from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify, but also everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available, and you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Did I mention it is totally free, no catch? I've been using Spotify for Podcasters since the very beginning of my show, and now we're nearing our 200th episode, so I can definitely say it's an easy platform, and I've really loved using it. So be sure to download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. All right. Hi, everyone. We have a guest here today. We have Razzle, who used to be a podcast listener back pre-dent, and now you're a D2, right? Or are you still D1? You're D2, right?
A D2.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit, where you're from, where you're at school now?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Razzle. I'm from Los Angeles, California, and I currently attend AT Still University, the Arizona School of Dentistry and Oral Health, and I'm super excited to be here. I moved from Los Angeles to Mesa, Arizona last year, and it's kind of crazy how fast things are going. But yeah, it's an honor to be here.
I know it's flown by. That's why I was like, I'm pretty sure you're a D2 because I'm already a D4. So you must be a D2.
Yeah.
Did you feel like there's a big difference in your mentality from D1 versus D2? I hear from a lot of people at our school, and I kind of felt like a lot of that just like pressure and nerves slowly kind of melts away throughout first year, and you just get used to like the hecticness and the way that so many exams and practicals and everything, you're not as, I guess, phased by it. How has that been for you?
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like now or before, actually, I was really nervous for all these tests coming. And at ASDOH, we have a pass-fail curriculum. And in undergrad, I was so focused on getting like the best grades ever and like getting like at least like a B or like a good grade. But at ASDO, you need a 75% or higher to pass. And when I found that out, I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And when I first started as a D1, I was like, oh, I am studying like a little too hard for these exams, and I probably shouldn't put that much pressure on myself because yeah, I want to try my best, but I also want to pass. But now I feel a little less stressed and more relieved because we're all here to pass and we're all going to be dentists at the end of the day. But yeah, I think way more used to taking all these tests. Something that ASDO does is that they like to put our tests right after vacations. And at first I was like, that's kind of scary, but now I'm kind of used to it. So yeah.
So do you have like a fall break and then you come back for midterms, or what does that look like for this semester?
So as a D1, we have a fall break, Thanksgiving break, and then winter break. But then as a D2, we don't have a fall break anymore. So our only breaks are Thanksgiving, a holiday break. We have spring break and then summer break, but they're very short. Like our summer break, I think, is a week this year compared to a month last year. So yeah, a big change.
Oh, wow. So like, but D1s versus D2s versus D3s versus D4s all kind of have different academic year schedule and different breaks.
Yeah, we do. So
Okay.
we have the longest break. They have a month of summer, they have a fall break, and yeah, it's just longer. But then as you move up, like D3, D4, you don't really get many breaks because you're working in the clinic all the time.
Interesting. For us, it's like we have an academic calendar and then all four classes follow it.
Oh,
So
wow.
we all have the same time that we're on break, except the first years get they don't get the July 4th week off because they just started like 3 weeks before that. So they don't need a break yet because they just started dental school is kind of the thought process. But other than that, we're all on the exact same schedule. And it's usually like 2 weeks between semesters, but we don't get a fall break either. So fall can be a little heavy when you're D1, D2 and still in a lot of exams and everything. But we don't even have any classes now. So it's so nice.
Oh, wow. So you're mostly in the clinic like full time?
Exactly. Yeah. And then worrying about boards whenever you take those and everything. When you said doing clinicals at your school, what does that look like? Do you have a clinic in your dental building and then also external sites that you go to?
Yeah, so as a D1 and D2, we have the main building. Well, we have the dental clinic, and then upstairs is our sim clinic. And as D1s and D2s and D3s, you're going to be staying on campus most of the time. But as D4s, you're going to have external rotations. So one thing that's pretty unique about our school is that students get to go around the US to like 4 or 5 different rotation sites and their community health centers, which is really cool. So they're serving the underserved. And basically, the sites can range from 4 to 6 weeks. And then they'll come back to ASDOH for 4 to 6 weeks and then go on another rotation 4 to 6 weeks. So it's a lot of moving around, but it's a really great opportunity to work as a student doctor at those places. And you get a lot of really good experiences, and people like choosing their sites based on the specialty. So sometimes one site can be more operative based, another can be more oral surgery based. So it really depends what you want.
That's awesome. We don't get any say in where we go for our external rotations. They're all in the state of Michigan, so we're not traveling too far. The furthest you're going, it's maybe like a 5 or 6 hour drive. Most of them are 2 to 3 hours, and then you'd stay for 2 weeks at a time.
Mhm.
But we do 4 weeks a semester per site. And then the next semester you'd get another site. And then your last semester you'd have another site. But we don't really get any say in where we go. So like the one I'm in right now is really slow because it just opened and it's like all pediatrics. And it's not like I said I wanted to do pediatrics, which is good experience, but just because it's a brand new clinic, it's really slow. So it's not the best rotation. And obviously, if I could have chosen, I would have picked something different. But it's
Yeah.
nice that you guys get a little bit of say in where you end up going fourth year.
Yeah, we get to rank, I think, our top 6, and then the school chooses 4 sites from that list, depending if it's available. So sometimes they can throw like a random one in there. But yeah.
And do you know like what kind of states are on that list? Like how far are people traveling from Arizona?
Yeah, so I've heard Seattle's really popular. There's Oregon, there is Wisconsin, Chicago, I think DC, like all over
That's
Texas.
far. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, oh, Alaska too.
What?
Yeah,
Wow.
kind of crazy. So honestly, they have a lot of sites to choose from. So yeah, it's really cool.
And as first and second years, are you spending any time in the dental clinics with when the patients are there? Are you assisting or do you start doing prophies or anything?
Yeah, so as D1s, we're mostly assisting in the clinic. We usually assist the D3s and D4s. And we're just like learning, shadowing, basically learning all about how ASDO clinic runs. And then as D2s, I actually saw my first patient not too long ago, like a month and a half ago, and it was for a prophy. I've seen 2 patients so far, so it's been so exciting. I was really nervous at first, but it went well, so I'm glad. But
Good.
my next patient will be a perio maintenance, so we are moving. So that's fun.
And then when do you get to do your first restoration usually?
So we're actually allowed to do simple restorations now, so like class 1s and class 5s. And yeah, it's just whenever if there's like a patient available for us, I'll probably just put it in our schedule so we can actually see like simple restorations.
That's cool. And how does scheduling work at your school? I know you're not in clinic yet, but for us, when I became a third year, I got a whole list of about 25 patients, and they were like my patients. And I was the one that contacted them, scheduled them. was their main provider. And then as the year went on, I requested new patients that were being admitted to the school or switched around between providers, and like my list just kept growing, but I still had my own little like patient family that I managed. Do you guys have your own set of patients, or are they shared between a D2, D3? How does that work?
So it's kind of both. At ASDA, we have these little families, so basically mentors. So I have like two D3 mentors, and then my D3 mentors have mentors that are D4s. So the way it works is that they basically like pass their patients on like a family. Like once D4s are done, they're gonna pass it to D3s, and then the current D3s have passed their prophy patients to me, which is really nice. So it's kind of like a rotation. At ASDO, we have these clinics called comprehensive care units. They're called CCUs, and there's 4 at our school. And basically, students are placed in like one CCU, and depending on your CCU, you have like a different clinic director. So things are run like differently in each clinic. But yeah, in the clinic I'm in, we do have like a patient list, and sometimes I'll get a new patient that just started going to ASDO, or I'll get someone from my mentor. It kind of just depends.
Yeah, that's actually pretty similar to us too. We have 4 different clinics, and the clinic you start in is the one you're going to work in the whole time. And we also have like clinic directors that at each clinic, and they run things a little different. Like we're supposed to have the same rules, but everyone has their, style that they go about it. So each clinic kind of is its own little world almost. So I guess jumping back, so we're talking ahead to clinic and things you're not super, super heavy into yet, but what was like your first couple weeks of D1 like in terms of getting acclimated to academics, trying to make friends? How did all that go for you?
Yeah, so when we started school, we actually had our orientation week for a week in July, and then we had white coat ceremony, which is interesting. It was right before we started, so we barely knew everyone. And then we started school. I actually got COVID like the first week of school, and I had to miss my first few days of school, and I was so sad. And there were like 20 of us that got COVID. So that was kind of sad. But I would say that it was an adjustment for me, like moving from California to here. It was hard because I didn't really have friends here. I didn't really know anyone. And I feel like I was really homesick for a little bit just because I'm super close with my family and I haven't moved like away this far from them, even though it's like an hour flight. But yeah, I would say as time went on, and as we got more busy, I started making more friends here in the dental school. And without them, I feel like I wouldn't know where I'd be. But yeah, they have been a really good support system here. And for academics, I was actually really surprised because in undergrad, I feel like things in undergrad, like the classes and tests, were a little more difficult than the ones in dental school, to be honest. Like the didactic portion, I think it's maybe because we have already like a background in those sciences. I think it started getting hard when we started musculoskeletal and head and neck anatomy. That's when it started really um, speeding up. And I think even though it was hard, we still got through it though. I think getting used to all the tests was a transition, but yeah, I think we're doing great.
Yeah, one of the things someone pointed out to me about one of the big differences between like a biology or whatever you're studying in undergrad to dental school is now our exams, at least for us, they're like all multiple choice. So compared to like orgo, where you have to write out all these answers, calc, or like a lab report that are much more like you have to be able to explain yourself and why you think the answer is what it is. Like we're not really having essay tests about biomaterials. So I think that's another reason it's a little less hard. Sometimes it can be just a lot of like memory and repetition in dental school.
Yeah. We actually just took our endo test, and that was actually fill in the blank. Like we actually had to write the definitions out, but half of it was multiple choice, and we weren't really used to filling in the blank, so that was a little hard for us because we were so used to multiple choice all the time.
That's good. As long as you knew it was coming, then it
Yeah.
probably was okay.
Yeah.
For being pass fail, I feel like people could have two perspectives on that, like liking it because there's a bit less competition and you also don't need to be as hard on yourself trying to like get those perfect scores. Some of my classmates here joke that dental schools pass fail if you believe it is, even though ours is graded. They're like, well, technically you need to pass to graduate and no one's going to look at your grades if you're going into XYZ thing or working or whatever. So I thought that was funny, even though we're graded. Some people have a pass fail mentality still, but most
Yeah.
of my classmates, I feel like, really push to get those like super high test scores. And a lot of that's because people want to specialize. So, what's kind of your perspective on that?
Yeah, so I've been hearing like a lot of concerns if pass fail makes you competitive enough for those specialty programs. And what I've noticed is that I think a lot of dental schools are transitioning to pass fail, which is really cool. And I think at ASDO there's a lot of ways to stand out. So there we have a lot of leadership opportunities, different clubs to be in. So I think that's one way to stand out. And then we also have some research opportunities. And I think just getting those letters of recs from like your professors is really important too. But I really like the pass fail curriculum. I like how everyone's very supportive and people aren't afraid to share their notes. And that makes me really happy because I wanted to be somewhere where people are very collaborative and they care about you and they don't care just about the grades. So that's been really nice. And yeah, I really like how our class is supportive and when someone sees that you're struggling, they'll probably ask questions like, "Are you okay?" So they really care, and I like that a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, that is special. And that's not something at every school. And when people ask about Michigan, I'm like, it's so class to class dependent. Like the D1s have a different dynamic than our current D2s and our current D3s and our current D4s and the D5s, D6s, all the other, like every class that comes in has a different dynamic. But the fact that we are graded does lend itself more towards, I guess, like a competitive nature. And it just depends like what people you're surrounding yourself with or what goals you're putting on yourself. I think that's the biggest thing. And what advice I give people if they're feeling bogged down or stressed about like their test scores and things. I'm like, well, it's you versus you. Like that's all that matters. Like you doing your own personal best. And I think it's depending what school you go to, that can be a challenge for people to kind of wrap their heads around a little bit. So I want to know, you mentioned like student orgs and leadership and things. What are maybe like your top three dental school events or like student org activities that you've enjoyed so far?
Does this include like national stuff or just my school?
It can be national, it can be conferences, it can be literally anything.
Okay. I would say one of my favorite events was the ASDA National Leadership Conference in Chicago. That's where I met Haley, so that's fun.
Yeah.
And I really liked it because it was so cool to see all the dental schools come together and meeting people from all over the US, which was so cool. It was my first time attending like a big conference like that, so that was really fun. And they had this like huge vendor fair, so like a lot of free stuff, and I like free stuff. So I thought that was fun. So that's one event. At ASDO, we actually have like a formal, I forgot what it was called. Oh, it was called Mandiball in April, and you get to dress up really fancy, like a prom. And I didn't know dental schools had that, so I thought that was really fun. Like you get to see everyone not in scrubs, and they all dress up fancy, and professors go there too. And it's just a fun night with like food and dancing. So that was a fun event. Another event that was really fun, and it's actually coming up next or this weekend, we have this event called Pontics and Politics. So it's basically ASDO versus Midwestern in Arizona, in Glendale, Arizona. And basically, they have teams that debate each other about certain dental topics that are like controversial. So actually, one of the topics last year was should dental schools be pass fail? And then I think ASDA was like, yes, it should be. And then Midwestern was like, no, it shouldn't. So you get to see them debate at this like venue. And then the judges are the deans of like both schools and like professors. So it's just really fun. And then I got to meet a lot of the Midwestern students. So yeah, that was fun. I really like meeting students from different schools, so that's been a fun time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think it's so cool when you get to meet people at other programs. Just you can like exactly what we're doing now, like pick their brain, like, oh, we do it this way, we do it that way, or this helped me, or oh, like someone from Michigan is in your class and I knew them or something. That's always like so fun when there are those random connections. Like I forget what it was. I think another person I met that's a dental student from Instagram goes to Tufts. And then his roommate that he happened to move in with is my dental school roommate's old roommate from college. Like
a
all
small
these just like
world.
crazy connections. And then another person I did a podcast with, another dental student, his roommate was my like little at my college and like our pre-health society. So like it's so funny. People just like spread out and everyone's connecting and forming their own like live paths, but it's cool when like things come back together somehow.
Yeah, that's so cool. Such a small world.
I know, exactly. So we talked about dental school a good bit and kind of your transition and some of the things you enjoy. But for pre-dental people, what would be your biggest tip for application time, whether it's like a practical thing or just like a mindset thing?
Yeah, one of the biggest tips I have is applying early, and I know a lot of people say that, but I think it really helps if you like apply within the first month. I think that would really help your application since it is a rolling admissions space. And just being prepared for like asking your what is it? Your letter, your writers basically for your letters of rec, asking them in advance for those letters because it does take a long time. And I remember like freaking out because I asked someone like in advance, but the person didn't upload it on the portal and I was freaking out because I was like, no, even though I have like my whole app done, like you're waiting on those letters. So whatever you can do to submit that and alleviate all the stress, that would be great. And then I would say for a mindset tip, I would just say to not compare yourself to people. For me, I would really go on SDN and I'd look up like the GPA everyone got, and I would see people be like, "Oh, I got like a 30 on my DAT." And I was like, "I'm not even close to that." And it just didn't make me feel good about myself. And I like you were saying, like I think it's really good to just focus on your own path because everyone is on a different journey and you don't have to have the best grades ever to get in, and everyone's special in their own way. So just be you and keep doing what you're doing. And yeah, just have like a positive mindset when you're applying, even though it can be stressful.
I love all of that. And usually at the end of episodes, I also ask people like for final words of wisdom, but I feel like you just gave a lot of good words of wisdom. But do you have anything to say to fellow dental students before we wrap up?
Ooh, to the dental students, I would say just try your best. There's going to be days that are very challenging and hard, and you feel like you want to give up. And then you think like, why are you even there? Because I've felt all of those. Like today in endo, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. But just keep going, and the hard work will definitely pay off. So, yeah, you made it this far, so just keep going.
I love the good vibes and positive energy. We all need more of that in our life, I would say. And you have an amazing Instagram and TikTok. So, do you want to plug your channels? And if people have questions, they could message you on Instagram, probably.
Yeah, so my Instagram and TikTok handles are at Razzle in Dentistry, RAZEL in Dentistry. So if you ever have any questions, if you ever want advice or just want to talk, feel free to message me.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Haley.